welcome to the meeting. You have the Sederunt and apologies.
Thank you, Chairman. Morning, members. 19 members present. I have no apologies.
Thank you very much. Have we got any declarations of interest? Brian?
Thank you, Chair. Items 4 and 5, I have family interest in terms of those items, but I don't see any reason for leaving the chamber.
Thanks very much. No? And just remind you that we've got an additional item taken at the end of the meeting about the response to the Scottish Government's consultation on the electronic cigarettes. And now we move on to the agenda. And with the minutes of the meeting 21st October, happy to move.
Happy to second.
Thank you. And item 4 is Community and Customer Services Revenue Monitoring Report. I'll hand you over to Mr. Haswell and he can explain the situation.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, the Revenue Monitoring Report is before members for scrutiny. We are showing a prediction of an overspend of £281,000. There are a number of reasons for this and they are set out in the report. What I would say to members is that we are working as a management team to ensure that we deliver a balanced budget. The report is to the end of September, which is halfway through the year, and there are a number of areas where we have been addressing issues, not least in terms of managing staff numbers, managing vacancies, managing casual employees and things like that. So I am confident, and my management team are confident that we will deliver a balanced budget at the end of the financial year. As I say, we're halfway through the year. I'm happy to answer questions on individual issues, Chairman, but my assurance to members is that we're moving forward to balance the budget.
Thanks very much, Mr. Haswell. Anybody get any questions? Archie?
Thanks very much, Chair. I think looking at Appendix 2 on page 33 and 34, I think it's a good news story, looking at the amount of individuals achieving nationally recognised accredited awards. But on the second...
in the wrong report. The item 4.
Oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong...
I can't in a hurry to get home, but... Okay. Any questions on item 4? No? Oh, Stephen and Pat.
Thank you. Yeah, it was just a question on it's 3.7 on the income levels, and I think I was maybe just from the minute we've just agreed there, I was maybe expecting there'd be a wee bit extra detail on the comparative visitor numbers for facilities at DG1 in this report that might sort of help give a bit of context to the income from alternative provision that is being generated now that we have the alternative provision in place. So it's just if there's any more information available on that.
I'm quite happy to bring members that. We did always indicate that when we closed DG1, which had 3 pools, and also modern facilities for weight training, etc., that the income will go down. We have budgeted for that income to go down. That's built into the base budget. I don't have the absolute detail, but we did build in a reduction in income. I'm happy to bring that back to members. What I would say to you is that I fully anticipate bringing a report to this committee on the DG1 and where we exactly are with DG1 to, if not the January, certainly the February meeting. I think the January meeting is mainly dealing with the budget scrutiny, but it would be to the February meeting. So I can give members individually, if you're looking at somebody, details of the income projections for the temporary pool and the Lorburn Hall as against the DG1 offline, if that's acceptable to members. I'll just send that out in an email.
Happy with that?
Yeah, no, I think I was maybe just expecting to see it maybe somewhere in the agenda, but if that's the way it's going to come out, then okay.
I think the view we took, Chairman, was that we'd already advised members that there would be a shortfall in income simply because the numbers can't go through the temporary pool. I do recall these figures coming. It was maybe the P&R committee they came to. I'll double check that, sir, and bring that back to members.
Patsy and Alistair.
Thank you. It's on the unspent policy development carried forward, which is on page 15. And I noticed there's civic pride / commissioning pilots, and we're sort of carrying forward 100,000, and it's under review. And I just wonder what that money was originally applied for and why it hasn't been used?
It was an issue of policy development funding. There were intentions that we would look at local communities and see if local communities could commission work on behalf of the local authority. For example, doing work on halls and things like that, and letting halls and so on. Unfortunately, as you'll see from the report that we've put forward, we're not having a lot of luck in persuading local communities to take on these particular aspects of the work. Councillor Gilroy, my intention is that money, we're clearly not going to use it. We've tried and we've cajoled, etc. My intention would be that would come forward as something that members might want to look at in terms of the budget going forward, as opposed to keep policy development funding that we now know is going to be extremely difficult to spend.
Thanks very much indeed, sir. Same page, box, welfare reform, box furthest to the right. Talking there, Chair, about in line with the decisions made at welfare reform on the 9th of December last year and 13th of March this year, sir, the recruitment of additional money advisor posts is being progressed by Revenues and Benefits Service. Now, given the pernicious effect of much of this reform programme on the poorest and most vulnerable members of our society, can we have the assurance that these posts will be put in place and will be operable at the first possible opportunity? Because it seems to me, Chair, that this is a problem in a Dumfries and Galloway context as well as a national context, and it's incumbent, as far as I'm concerned, in this council, as it were, to get tooled up to confer the maximum amount of benefit as soon as possible. I'd also be interested, Chair, in putting the question, why at the end of the day have we not already had, do we not already have these in post, these appointments made by now, or was it a decision that in fact to be implemented partway through the financial year? I'm asking for clarification in that regard, Chair. Grateful to you.
I think the intention was to get some clarification as to where welfare reform was going. We have the agreement from members to make these appointments, but members will recall that they got an email towards the end of last week saying that we were now being told that welfare reform would begin to be rolled out across Dumfries and Galloway with effect from the 1st of April. I think we didn't want to put people in post until we actually had work for them to do. I accept that there's the argument, if they're in post, they're ready to do the work. The intention always was that we would be waiting to see exactly what came out of the welfare reform agenda, because we are not getting an awful lot of information as to how it's going to go forward, other than it will be happening. Members will see that we anticipate we'll have about 60 to 70 people involved in the welfare reform agenda with effect from the 1st of April, and at that point we'll start kicking things in. We will be bringing further reports back to members on welfare reform. The email that was sent to them recently was merely to make you aware of what was happening. We are going into the detail. We have meetings with the DWP, and we'll bring that back to members as soon as we have further flesh on the bones, so to speak.
Thanks very much indeed, Chair. I'm grateful to Mr Haswell for the reassurance, and you know, on the basis so that, you know, we do recognise the situation, on the basis that we will in fact hit the ground running, for want of a better term, as soon as it's absolutely possible to do so. I'll go with that. Thanks, Chair.
Any further questions? Mr. Scobie?
Yeah, Chair, and I totally agree with what Alistair's saying, that, and indeed that we are now moving into an era where, or a period when we're going to have it rolled out in universal credit, and the impact that will have on many of the people in Dumfries and Galloway. So I hope we are hitting the ground running in that respect. My question is to page 9, in terms of community facility review, potential shortfall, 33, and in 3.12, it refers to, you know, a shortfall of 180k. Some of us have brought this issue to the attention of the committee in the past, in terms of reaching the savings that we hoped, or what was hoped could be achieved, and some of us were very pessimistic in terms of reaching this. Could we have more detail from the Director in terms of the impact on this, that we have not managed to do it in the first half, and will this have an increased impact on the second half in trying to bring the budget into line I know the Wigtown Area Committee are waiting on a report on the integration, the savings that was hoped to be achieved, and we still remain pessimistic. It's really to ask the Director what the impact will be in trying to bring the budget into line and the effect of that.
We are rolling it across Dumfries and Galloway. We did it over a period of 2 years. We started in the west, and you'll see there's a report further on in the agenda setting out the savings we've achieved, in particular moving west. There are issues as we move forward into the east. We've recently completed, I think, Lochmaben, and we're working towards Annan. We've got Lockerbie almost in place. We've got Moffat almost in place. The integration issue relates to ensuring that we have staff trained on all three issues that come within integration: libraries, registration and customer services. You'll see from the report further on in the agenda there has been a marked reduction in the number of people who are doing their transactions with the council face to face. More and more people want to go through the telephone or online, and the integration, and Councillor Scobie and I will agree to disagree on this one. The integration in Stranraer Library is in actual fact working. It's just had a few teething problems. We are now achieving all of the savings we said we would achieve in the west. We're now moving east. There have been issues in relation to matching processes and going through staff processes, but we are convinced that we will achieve the savings that we said through integration within the 2-year period that we set out. It's not just happened as quickly as we would like it to have happened. One of the issues is when you are using better and fewer facilities, there is work to do on the facilities to make them better. And I think members will have seen the amount of work that we've done. We've got work to do in Castle Douglas. It's a fairly major piece of work. In item 8, Chairman, there's a lot more detail which maybe Councillor Scobie would want to come back to, particularly in terms of the amounts of money being spent on the integration process. But yes, we are moving forward on it. It's taken longer than I would have liked. I think we were maybe a bit over-ambitious in terms of the amount of work that would be required on buildings. The staff are embracing it. We have got matching processes for integration. The new library hours over in the east will kick in on the 5th of January, and we are doing a matching process for the staff over the next fortnight to make sure that we've staff there to carry out the integration process.
Okay, can I just come back on the same point now, Chair, that I'm on the right report? I can only thank the staff in this service actually helping in Langham, for instance. I didn't realise how difficult it would actually be to win hearts and minds with regards to the integration of this particular thing. And I think the staff, when they work with the local community, they find some good solutions. And people will be aware that Langham has went through that process. It's actually finding the right place as opposed to the services, and there is only one real place in Langham that can actually happen, which is in the town hall. So just to say that I'd like to thank the staff for the work that they're actually doing with the community in that particular area.
Can we move on to the recommendations? 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4. Thank you very much. Move on to item 5 and the 6-monthly performance report for CCS. We've been asked to scrutinise this before agreeing to the proposed amendments as outlined in Appendix 3. Ask the Director to take us through the report, highlighting achievements and the bad areas as well. And I think that some areas were overperforming, but perhaps Mr. Haswell can give us a view of the good, the bad and the ugly. Over to you, Alan.
This is the 6-monthly assessment report, Chairman. There is a coloured copy for members, and I'll take the pelters for the fact that we've given you a coloured copy, but I always think it's much better. I think the best place that members can go, the schedules are all there. The performance indicators for both our own performance and project performance are set out there. We have set out a number of exception reports in Appendix 2. And in Appendix 3, I'm suggesting some amendments to the performance information and how we measure performance going forward. I'm not doing that because I'm not achieving the performance. I think performance targets have got to be realistic, and if they ain't realistic, there's little point in keeping bringing them forward. But members will see from the exception reports, the first two show very much an overachievement, and perhaps I would look at my colleagues and we could maybe answer questions from members where we have overachieved or in fact where we have underachieved. We accept that there are areas which need improvement. We have set out improvement programmes for each of the areas that do require improvement, and we're happy to take questions from members.
That's it. Thanks, Ian. Just coming back to what I said before, I mean, looking at those particular two issues in Appendix 2, which is on page 33 and 34 of the report, there are in the first case the numbers of individuals achieving nationally recognised accredited awards, which is good. It's a good news story. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But when you look at the number of individuals achieving personal development goals, which is non-accredited, it's quite high as well. And I'm looking at the correlation between the two. Obviously, one of the issues is we need to get as many people in the region qualified, or certainly have certificates for the actual work that they are doing. And it says in number 2 on page 34, no actions are required to improve performance. I would agree with that. However, is there a way in which we can take that particular key target and try and improve the previous one where there actually are qualifications to the personal development goals? That's what I was looking at.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I mean, one of the key priorities on adult learning is to ensure that any individual is given the opportunity to excel against to their own ambitions, and every support is given to individuals that if they do participate in non-accredited awards or programmes or activities, that they're certainly made well aware of the opportunities it may present in terms of accredited ones. And I think there's a number of good examples of where there's strong links to employability. For example, it could be somebody that ultimately gets their confidence increased. So it's very much focused on the individual, but it's an important point that's made, and I think it's more about ensuring that individuals are aware of all opportunities that are available, either accredited or non-accredited, Chair.
Thanks, Chair. Just on page 41, I've obviously discussed this matter in the past. To do EMS, obviously, we're slipping a bit here. What concerns me, sometimes elected members are looking for pretty strong, detailed responses, and sometimes it takes a long time. I know I've been waiting for a period of time, but I have got a response. What concerns me, you've actually put an evaluation sort of survey for an elected member. Inquiry number comes up to each councillor or elected member. This should have been done years ago, because many public sector firms have an evaluation form if they're happy the way the complaint was dealt with. This should have been implemented years ago when this system was up and running. But I've still got concerns about EMS, and I think we know we need to be a bit more robust with it, an organisation. As I say, 2-3 word answers to elected members not going to palm me off. I'll keep coming back. But I think we need to tighten up this process and tighten up the timescales for elected members. And I think the idea of the evaluation process is a good idea. But I know one of my constituents is away on holiday, and I was asked for an evaluation on the response, and I can't contact my constituent because the person's abroad. But I think we should maybe leave that to a 3-week period on a response time for elected members to say, well, I'm satisfied, I'm not satisfied, but not just within a matter of days once you've had the reply. Chair.
Thanks, Chair. A couple of important points I think has been touched on there. There was an improvement plan for EMES agreed by committee in the summer, and I think it was recognised that it's an ongoing improvement cycle that needs to be in place. And what we wanted to try and do on the back of introducing the member feedback is at the earliest opportunity give the elected member who submitted the inquiry the opportunity to say, look, I am perfectly satisfied, or I'm not satisfied, and more importantly, here's why. Linked to that, every service director now gets a monthly status report on all inquiries that have been submitted in relation to their service, and they are given all the feedback that elected members have provided over that corresponding period. So I totally agree that it should have been introduced some time ago, and even though we've got an improvement plan that's been recently agreed, we are still trying to capture member and indeed staff feedback to how we can continue it on an ongoing basis. So we would very much welcome any feedback that members give us. I think the other thing we've looked at is to try and support elected members to manage caseload and constituency business. There's now the facility that members can get a customised report that gives them a breakdown of all inquiries submitted and the status of each. And I think the new back office software that we use has got a greater flexibility to be able to do that. I appreciate there's always room for improvement, but I like to think perhaps in comparison to 12 months ago, the whole operation of EMES is certainly more customer focused than perhaps what it used to be. Thanks, Chair.
Move on to the recommendations. Oh, sorry, Alistair.
Thanks, Chair. That's page 27, sir. Develop an asset management plan to identify investment priorities, maximise use of CCS buildings. And there's what I would take to be a failure logo there. And there's no an exception report, as it were, which has been flagged up in Appendix 2. Why is that the case, Chair? It's page 27, Chair. It's the code is CCS 04P04.
I don't know, short answer. I'll make sure it's addressed. I think you will find that the investment priorities in maximising the use of the CCS buildings will also relate to a number of other issues, including the community facilities handover, the integration and things like that. So I will bring a report back. If members want a specific report on that, I'll bring it back to the next meeting, rather than put it through a monitoring report.
With your leave, sir, grateful as always. I think it's absolutely imperative, Chair, that we do bring back this report to the next meeting. I think there were very real concerns expressed at last week's meeting of the Audit and Risk Management Committee about certain aspects of this particular service's performance. And I don't want to be accused under any circumstances of having this particular service in my sights, Chair, but I think in the back of the fact that there's a failure there and there's no exception report, I think it's imperative that we get an updated situation at the first possible opportunity, i.e. to the next meeting, as it were, of this committee, Chair. I'm grateful to you.
I'm happy to provide the update. I'm not clear what happened. The committee will speak to Mr. Geddes offline. Perhaps I could say the due date's the 31st of March 2014, so we're well past the sell-by date. I'll check that one and come back to you.
Thanks, Chair. Same page, same block, develop community area profiles across D&G. We were assured some time ago that this was an integral part of the integration of health social care. We play a major part in it. How can we be satisfied it's only 42% progressed when integration is due to kick in April next year? We should have had the strategic plan developed by then, jointly with the NHS, and the area profiles, I would suggest, have got information absolutely crucial to the formation of that integration process and that integration joint plan. Can we get, again, why there's no exception report for that? And I would suggest that we need to do something pretty damn quick.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, the area profiles have now been fully completed by the Crichton Institute. They were commissioned to do that work. I've actually seen sight of final drafts, and we're just currently in arrangements to officially launch those involving all elected members of the council. perhaps the milestones that have been established for this project would suggest that it's not as far on as what it actually is. The 42% is reflective of the fact that the actual impact of the area profiles, once implemented and once getting used by community planning partners, is evaluated. So we're looking to launch these documents across the region after budget setting in February of next year, but they're now in a state that I'm quite happy to discuss them with any elected members. We've got one for each of the 4 areas, and the ongoing monitoring of the impact of these area profiles has been built into the project. So obviously we can't evaluate the impact until they've been introduced. So that's perhaps why the 42% looks lower in terms of achievement than what it actually is. But as mentioned, I'm happy to share the current version with any elected member.
Yes, please. So the question is, and then how can we assure our NHS partners that we are meeting our end of all the statistics and requirements required to put together the strategic plan, which needs to be in place by April 2015. If we're not going to discuss them until after the budget in February, we're not leaving enough time.
The NHS colleagues have been fully involved in the process, Councillor Ferguson, and that also complements the health intelligence unit within the NHS. So they've been involved in the process from date, so nothing will come as any surprise to them. I can assure members of that.
I'm still coming back. It's still no answer on the question, right? Because we don't have them ready. The question I'm asking here, is why we not got them ready. Right? They should have been ready long before this, because we were assured, it was at least a year ago, we were assured that they would be ready and they would be an integral part of the considerations for the strategic plan for the integration of health social care. And what's got to happen here now is that nobody has had a chance to see them. No members had a chance to see them. We don't know what it's all about, and it's going to be effectively, foist's the wrong word, Harry, but we should be getting a chance to look at them and scrutinise them and consider them because elected members will be part of that strategy. Third sector people will be a part of that strategy, as well as the NHS and the local authority, and carers, because we're required now by law to consult carers. So to bring it out then isn't actually going to meet the needs of a proper process for consultation on the joint strategic plan for the joint and the joint working.
Chairman, members agreed an integration plan. The integration plan provides for these profiles to be ready for the 28th of February 2015. Harry's given an assurance that that will be the case. We've been involving partners in the preparation of those. Those will come forward within the due time.
Thanks, Chair. Just on 3.5, it references some business and technology solution capital projects. So I was just wanting to get an idea of if there's any dependency in any of the other work of CCS that actually depends on the work of BTS delivering IT projects, etc., and if that's going to be, given that they're sort of subject to getting resources, is that going to affect the delivery of other projects that maybe rely on those BTS projects being delivered?
Not aware of any others. We've highlighted the ones where BTS are in control. That probably goes back on one of the issues that Councillor Geddes has raised in terms of the earlier question of the better use of buildings. We're dependent on colleagues elsewhere, and I'm not in the habit of blaming anybody. I'm not blaming anybody for this. There are 7 projects which we are dependent on BTS to take forward as part of the bigger capital programme. The remainder, we don't do technology solutions work now. The days of departments going out and buying their own software and installing it are long gone. It's all controlled, properly controlled as members wanted it to be. I'm not aware of any others. We've got 7, I think, that are dependent on tech solutions. They will be reporting separately under their performance indicators, and my understanding is that they will deliver before the end of the year.
Okay, no further questions. Can we move to the recommendations? Can we accept the recommendations 21, 22, 23, 24 and 25? Okay. Moving on to item number 6, which is the DG Health and Wellbeing Performance Report. This is the annual report to the Community and Customer Service Committee on the Work and Performance Joint Council and NHS Health and Wellbeing Unit, now known as DG Health and Wellbeing. It sets out the key areas of work undertaken in the last 12 months associated with the high-level outcomes for DG Health and Wellbeing associated with young children, young people, and adults and older people. Can I just say on this, I mean, it's as a written report, I think in future I would want to see performance indicators, benchmarks, and certainly a budget, because we put a fair bit of money in here, and certainly since it started reporting to this committee, I've never seen a budget for this service, so I'd like to see what we get for our money. However, I'll hand over to Michelle McCoy, Interim Director of Public Health. Have you anything to add to the report?
Thank you. Maybe just some context rather than adding, but just to emphasise a number of points. One is that the health and wellbeing agenda is very much a long-term agenda and requires sustained effort. It's about creating the environment to support individuals and communities, enabling them to make positive health and wellbeing choices. Within that, as you'll see from the report and the range of things that we do, it's looking at physical and mental health and wellbeing and taking that holistic approach. And when we do that, where the areas that are prioritised based on national priorities and also an understanding of local need and the contribution that all of these areas of health and wellbeing that they make to long-term health outcomes. And I think also to emphasize the importance of working in partnership, which we do at all levels, both strategically and operationally. And that's working across different services, organizations, and with individuals and communities. We need to understand from their perspective what the needs are, as well as understanding from the data. And I would see that is a major contribution into the long-term health and well-being and sustainability, and I think particularly important in terms of the health and social care integration agenda.
Thank you very much. Members, got any questions? Councillor Maitland?
I was going to ask about the guidance with respect to the health and social care integration proposals. Are we going to see some level of guidance? There's supposed to be guidance to do with performance management coming through from the government, Scottish Government, about health and social care integration. Now, I just wondered whether we were going to see performance information into which we can slot this type of activity, because I agree with you, Chairman, that it's thin in respect of what we as elected members might expect. It's not to say it's not valuable work, but I can't tell, and I'm aware of what the officer has said about it being a long-term game, but I can't tell from this report, actually, whether I am getting bang for my bucks in straitened circumstances. I'm not saying I'm not, I just can't tell. So I'm hoping that you might reassure me that there will be a framework for us to slot this sort of outcome-based performance management into in the future in the context of health and social care. I draw your attention, Chairman, to page 65 in the wellbeing programme, where the word outcomes is used, and you go over the page and that there are suggestions, that there are improvements in health behaviour, there are improvements, statistically significant improvements in clients' mental health and well-being, and that to my mind is extremely important. So, with those remarks.
Thank you. Do you wish to respond to that, Chair?
With the complexity of the work and the range of things that we do, we could organise something whereby we could provide more detail. But it's important to note that for all of these things, we do focus on the outcomes, and within that have a number of clearly set outputs. And if it would be helpful in future, we could maybe organise a seminar and look at the totality, or we could be looking at particular aspects and providing more detail for that if it would be helpful. In relation to health and social care integration, one of the pieces of work that public health will be involved in is looking at the joint strategic needs assessment, which will look at pulling together the qualitative data and the quantitative data and bringing in from a local community perspective. And then we would be looking at how do we provide the services to match those needs. So I think it's an iterative process. It's not going to be a one-off.
Thanks, Chair. Going to the last two speakers, I'm actually yourself and Jane. I kind of welcome a simplified version, because in the past we've had reams and reams and reams with loads and loads of statistics and figures. And if I remember, Michelle was asked, necessarily committed, at least, can we have a more simplified version? Well, we've certainly got that, and it tells us the bones of exactly what we need to know. So in that respect, this is only an update, because the annual report, and Director of Public Health has to publish an annual report, which gives everything. The issue of KPIs I have a bit of a problem with, because as it stands just now, until we get the integration thing working properly, the targets that the NHS have to work to conflict at times with the targets that the local authority have to work to. So yeah, it would suggest it would take the staff all day trying to separate the different targets and writing separate reports for the NHS and for us. And whilst I'm not suggesting for a minute we don't scrutinise, that's not what I'm saying, is we need to have a bit of sympathy here for a process that's in transition. It's moving from one to another. And I would suggest that the work currently taking part with going forward in the work towards integration is actually looking just exactly at what joint KPIs that we can have. So I think we need a bit of patience, maybe, Chair. I think you're right, though. We do need KPIs here on a regular basis, but they have to be sensible KPIs and ones that are, actually meet our needs as well as the integrated process. Does that make sense?
Thank you for that, because I think it links with the long-term nature. But as I say, I can reiterate that we have an agreed action plan, and with that action plan, we've got specific actions and outputs that we undertake, and we could certainly share that with members. And I think it's right. We report to a number of different places and make contribution to reports in different places, not least the Public Health Committee, where there are members of the Council, but likewise the Single Outcome Agreement.
Yeah, Chair, similar to the thread that seems to be running through is the KPIs and how we measure. And I'm looking at this one here in 3.9 in the report of page 58. Children and young people enter adulthood with optimum levels of health and well-being. Then I go on to associate that with the appendices, or Appendix 1, and getting it right for every child. So correct me if I'm getting this wrong, or if I am on the wrong track. But what I see here in education and schools, DG Health and Wellbeing and Education have agreed to review the redesign the personal and social education, health and wellbeing programmes. And it goes on to talk about improving health and reduction of risk-taking behaviour. My own experience from casework and being involved with many of the families west of the region is in getting it right for every child. And this is the point where I can be advised, is that in doing that, then families and children are still waiting 2 and more years to be diagnosed, who may be suffering from some form of autistic spectrum order or disorder. And I don't see much in here in terms, it's more aligned to what you can physically see in obesity or activity, and yet, very little on mental health of some of these young children, as young as 2, going into 3 in nurseries. So perhaps we could have something on that in terms of getting it right for every child, and that we are approaching this and reaching targets, because it was said that the time had come down from 2 years to 9 months, yet I'm still hearing of cases that are not. So whether it falls into this remit of this new joint committee. Also, Chair, on page 66, in terms of reducing inequalities, welfare and reform, and financial inclusion, poverty, and it goes on to talk about the anti-poverty conference, which again, the administration and the authority should be praised for in terms of launching this. But it's how do we move it forward, where 1 in 3 children west of the region are caught on below the poverty line, and we have the increased number of food banks and so forth, which in itself is an indictment, although it's maybe a good thing that we've got them, but it's society and what that reflects. What are we doing to move the anti-poverty strategy forward as a measurement and what's acceptable to us?
Thank you. I think there are a number of possible questions in there, and I'll try and link them. When I said in the context, where the work is very much in partnership, and DG Health and Wellbeing doesn't have a lead role in everything. It provides public health expertise into that. So I think it's important to emphasise that partnership. So when you highlight the anti-poverty strategy, we have a contribution to make to that, and we're not leading in that. But it is absolutely essential, because we know, for example, that inequalities begin in early years and they continue throughout life, and it's about the action that we collectively as partners undertake to mitigate against that. And I think that links to some of your comments around getting it right for every child. The national programme, which is looking at the services and putting the systems in place to ensure that any potential issues or concerns about any child within a family context is picked up as soon as possible. It's the Children's Services Executive Group, which has been established between the NHS and the Council. They're the people who are driving that forward, and the work that public health does is to support that. And I think, just to emphasise again the life course approach, we recognise that there are certain stages across the life course whereby you can focus intervention, and early years would be a very important part of that, and we need to work in a multi-agency way to do that. So the health service is one player, but it's third sector, other services and organisations as well. Similarly, the adolescence is a recognised second life stage, where there's brain development that goes on that leads to risk-taking behaviour. So, for example, that you highlighted the work in schools. The work in schools is aiming to build confidence and personal and social skills for an individual to make positive life choices, and to limit the negative impact of any risk-taking behaviour, because risk-taking behaviour is a natural part of adolescence. So all of these things build on one another, and we have to constantly remember that we're talking about individuals, and individuals and how they respond to different exposures is very different, and it's that holistic nature. We need to be looking at the whole person, and I would be hoping that getting it right for every child is central to that.
Thanks very much, Chair. I don't see any mention on this paper reference dental provision across the region. And this is not anecdotal. one constituent I'm aware of has gone on to her 10th course of antibiotics, and she's in continuous pain, and the soonest she can get a dental appointment is June 15. Now, I do recognise that recruitment of dentists is a national problem, not just a local one, but I wonder what's happening in that context, and the well-being of the individual that I cite is certainly not being served well. That gives me serious cause for concern. On speaking with the dentist, I was advised that Glasgow Dental Hospital was not an alternative because they're under similar pressure. Just on another point, insofar as communication, and I've raised this matter elsewhere, insofar as communication between community nurses and our schools, particularly primary schools, where the parents are given assurance of the relevant information being passed to the primary school. That hasn't been happening, and there can be serious implications in that, as I'm sure you know better than I, insofar as dietary needs and such like are concerned, so that the primary school is not receiving that relevant information as per that child. And it's the breakdown in that communication, however it's happening, that I would like to be assured will be looked at more closely, and some assurances ascertained from that is actually happening.
I can't personally give a specific assurance, but what I can do is I can relay the general point. I think that the general point links to the Getting It Right for Every Child national programme and ensuring that the systems are in place to share the right information to make sure that action plans are put in place to support the best outcome. Now, if those things are not happening, that information needs to be picked up, and I would say that I can take that back as a specific comment, but I can't if it's not easy for me to go back to the individual. But if it's a general point about a system not working, we can, and that is where it needs to link back into the Children's Services Executive Group, who's, as I say, one of the strategic areas that they're focusing on is the implementation of the Getting It Right for Every Child. And similarly with the dental health, that would need, if it's about one individual, that needs to go back to the service. And I could endeavour to pick that up with you, but that's not my area of responsibility. But you were asking about generally in terms of oral health. We do have an oral health programme that it works with children, and we could provide a separate report on that. That reports to the Public Health Committee, so we could share that report as well.
Thanks very much, Chair. I do appreciate the response. I'm sure it's a very simple solution that could be put in place insofar as the schools are concerned and the collaboration that takes place there. However, on the other hand, this dental provision, as I freely admit, nationally, I recognise has been a problem. It's not just an individual case, it's the lack of dentists, the lack of filling vacancies, and the distress that's causing customer or patients generally across the region. Can I also say that at page 66, the bullet point right at the top of the page, whilst there is comfort to be had from the statement there are statistically significant improvements in client mental health and well-being following health coaching, that's a nice cosy statement and good to read, but I would like to see some evidence base attached to the statement. As it stands, it's a cosy line, but it doesn't give us the actual drill down impact and difference that's been achieved.
I think I might offer earlier that we could go into some of these in detail, but generally, as some of that evidence will be qualitative. It will be feedback from individuals in terms of how they were feeling themselves before intervention and how they were feeling after.
Thanks. Just on page 62, just wondered, see the things that are being done with regards to teenage pregnancy in schools. I just wondered, do we have an issue in this region compared to the rest of Scotland? Do we have an issue? Is it an issue compared to the rest of Scotland? How do we trend?
No, we're very similar to Scotland. It's actually improved since 2011, where it was slightly higher in the 13 to 15 age group. But again, the important thing, and I think the important thing to note there, is the work that we're doing with education, which is ensuring that no young teenage parent has got their life chances limited by being a teenage parent. And so that's about making sure that they have their opportunities for education and going on to college and supporting that, because that's fundamental to optimum health and well-being across the life course.
Thanks, Chair. Just one thing. I know Michelle's made some commitments to bring us back some information here and respond in maybe a slightly different way that we've been getting in the past. Is there any way we could actually get some sort of chart or roadmap showing the interactions between the NHS, the local authority, which departments were actually working with each other? Because I think some of the members would find that very interesting. And other service committees, because as it comes here, because this is the committee that deals with it, it will have an impact, for example, in social work and education. And if that piece of work was done, it would help clarify just exactly, but for members, the extent of the work and the long-term work that you're doing. Because you're absolutely right, some of this won't be apparent for 20, 25, even 30 years before some of the good work will come to fruition.
All right. I hope I've picked up your question correctly. It's wanting to know where the contributions that we're making to different parts of, as well as the action plan that we have specifically.
Yeah, absolutely, Michelle, because it would be, through you, Chair, sorry, it'd be a massive document if we were to do it all, but it's the sort of basic interactions of, for example, your early years, NHS early years team, with the early years team in education discussing things, or social work, children and families, or whatever. Older people's team in social work. And if we can get some sort of idea exactly of the contribution that's the interaction between the two and the contributions from both sides, because I think there's a bit of doubt here just exactly how much input each of these different parts of the council wants to have in the public health agenda.
Okay, we could be trying to, in addition to the action plan, to identify the partners that we're working with to move that forward. It may be a snapshot at a point in time.
Okay, I think we've had a fair go at this. What I'd like to suggest is, we did have an offer there from Michelle about a seminar, and I think that would be an ideal thing to have for all members of the council, not just this committee, because it does overarch into other areas like social work and education. And obviously, if there's an action plan there, that certainly does go into the other services of this council. So I think we'd like to see a seminar on the action plan and also the budget, because we do contribute to the budget for this, and we'd forward a copy of the budget to officers, and we can have that at our next meeting. And again, if officers want to discuss with yourself about how we can bring in a way to measure performance indicators, that may well be something for the future as well. So if you're happy to take that on board. Okay. Alistair, I'll allow you in and then...
I'm very grateful to you, Chair. I waited perhaps uncharacteristically patiently. But anyway, as far as I'm concerned, sir, it is, I'm not going to fall into the trap of damning the report with faint praise. I think this has already been said. It is a good report. It's easy to read. It's, more importantly, it's easy to assimilate and understand. I do take the point originally made by Councillor Maitland and reinforced by various other members. We've got to get evidence, as it were, in relation to the outcomes. With the greatest respect, Chair, I don't agree with your submission that it should in fact be a seminar. I'm not a fan of seminars. I would suggest in fact we make this a formal item of business for as early a meeting of this committee as possible, and in that way we invite all 47 members to be here and to allow them perhaps, if it's possible in governance terms, Chair, to participate, as it were, in that particular item of business, and then arrive at the conclusion, as it were, of some form of meaningful decision-making process. On the back of that, with your leave, sir, I would like to go back to the point that Councillor Scobie has made, reducing inequalities and welfare reform and financial inclusion and poverty. I was at, like most members, or a lot of members, I was at that particular anti-poverty conference. I found it, while the Council are to be commended unreservedly, and the administration in particular for arranging it, I found it was an extremely frustrating experience because we were only scratching, even beginning to scratch the very surface of the massive issues in question. And Willie is right. We've got to make sure, in fact, that we know exactly where we're going. And don't let us underestimate, Chair, the magnitude of our task. It was Marie Antoinette that once notoriously said, let them eat cake. And we've now got our latter-day Tory counterpart saying, let them eat oats. Let's delude ourselves as to the magnitude of the task that faces us. And I think at the end of the day, we've got to address it, and we've got to continue to address it on an unremitting basis to ensure, in fact, that we do force this through. And force is the word, as far as I'm concerned, will need.
Councillor Geddes, Councillor Maitland.
Thank you. I'd like to get back to the idea of what we're doing with this piece of work. It's fine as it goes, but it doesn't go far enough. I agree with you, Chairman, we need more information about the budgets, we need more information, and we need to apply those to the action plan, which we, after all, have agreed. It's a jointly agreed action plan. So it's our plan. I would like to, I reiterate that we are about to make a major change in health and social care. Health and social care is being chunked up to be area-based and run. It's called localities. And I have to say that I continue to say that if members wish to really grapple with this, they need to have the baseline information, they need to know about what inequalities exist in their particular area, and they need then to know what is being done with the budgets from this action plan and applied to do the things which you've already decided to do, which is reducing inequalities and strengthening communities through supporting mental health and well-being, capacity building, physical activity, and food and health. So by all means, let's have a bit more work. Let's get the information we require, but let's align it to the business that we are going to see coming forward, so that we as elected members have a chance to see what's happening in our own areas. And I think that's a difficult piece of work which has to be done, because in fact, actually, public health is going to not be public health per se, but public health as a means to doing all the things that we are trying to do. And I do appreciate it's not that easy to do, but I think we should start.
Thanks very much. I thought I'll take on board what Alistair said rather than seminar. If we make it, whether it's a meeting of this committee or a meeting of full council, depending on the diary, discuss that with the director at the end of the meeting. So if members are happy to have it formalised rather than seminarised, you agree to that? Thank you. Thanks very much, Michelle. And we'll move on to item 7, which is the progress report on Creative Future. That's on Dumfries and Galloway, report by Director of Community and Customer Services. Can I say in this one, the Nithsdale Area Committee members were maybe lucky in that we had a community meeting last Thursday night where a fair bit of this was discussed. And I can say coming out of that I think this committee needs to go a wee bit further than what's contained in the report here. For myself, I certainly feel that members will see in that report there's maybe issues we were not aware of, like 4 area conveners and a regional convener, all paid a nice bit of money for convening, whatever. And I think what we do need is reports back to the area committees. And I would perhaps suggest that, A, these regional conveners should report to the area committees early next year what their programme is for that specific area, because I think that the area conveners would probably come as quite a surprise to area committee members, because there doesn't seem to have been any interface at an official level between these area conveners and what they do and what the area committees do. So I would certainly suggest that as one of the recommendations when we come to the end. Again, I think we as a committee need a report back as to what this DG Unlimited is doing as well. It's all very well, we're putting in a fair bit of public money and they're saying, well, we're getting 3 times as much from elsewhere, mainly Creative Scotland, it must be said. But that's not the accountability we need at the end of the day. You don't just hand over £200,000 and somebody says, oh great, we've turned it into £800,000. You know, fine, you can hire a magician and do that. At the end of the day, we've got to follow the public pound and make sure that it's fully accounted for. So I think we need some reassurance as well as a committee and the area committees. So these are certainly matters I want to return to at the end of the meeting. I think if we hadn't had that community meeting in Nistdale the other night, a lot of this would never have come to the fore. There does seem to be a wee bit feeling there that the arts people feel they can do things better. Right? You know, we've got to have our say as well. We've got to look after public money, and I think we should have a say in the programme, because that was one of the things that was levelled by a couple of folk in the audience, that it was all very well, but they weren't appealing to all tastes out there in the community. Some of it was maybe a bit too highbrow. So putting down a few markers. Anyway, anything to add to the report?
I don't think so. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, members get any questions? Archie?
Chair, just coming back to what you were saying before with regards to the area coordinators or whatever they're called. Certainly, obviously, this particular time and with the commemoration of the First World War, and there's a lot of stuff going on round about in local communities, and there's a lot of the VC stuff and that happening. And in Andale and Essiel, of course, we've got Quinton's Hill and the Devil's Porridge side of things. And one of the areas where we're trying to look at is actually having a statue of a woman munitions worker in Gretna. And we've had discussions with the area coordinator in Andale and Estill. My understanding is that that's part of the programme that's going forward in the later part of the 4 years, the 4 or 5 years. That discussion also talked about other funding for the area coordinator. Now, I'm just wondering to stop or to increase the opportunity for that statue to happen. I wonder as part of and again, this will be an operational thing rather as a strategic thing. I wonder as part of that particular role and remit that the individual gets involved because of the funding that we as a council actually give.
I certainly say that's part of the remit of the Area Arts Hub conveners, to support projects that are happening on the ground with advice and signposting to fundraising sources. So I'm glad that Alan's been involved with these discussions, and I would expect him to be working with you to help to identify sources. Certainly, that's part of the role of the Area Arts Hub conveners, to work locally with the organisations there.
That's lovely, thanks, Chair.
Thank you. I would remind members, actually, that this is their creation. You created this. You agreed also that officers would have a certain amount of authority delegated. We actually delegated that to the head of resources, planning and community services. Now, you know, we might decide we don't want to do that anymore, but at the time, that's what we all agreed. I remember doing it in Buccleuch Street. We did that. And we agreed the commissions that they were going to go out off and deal with. And we also actually had area plans, and we all agreed those through area committees. So actually, Chairman, we've all had a finger in this particular pie. I don't disagree with you that it's time to have another look at it. I don't disagree with that in any shape or form, but we can't actually berate something for having happened when we in fact agreed that it should happen in the first instance.
I would point out it was way back in 2012, the Policy and Resources Committee, which at that time was handling this particular brief, but most of us who are around this table weren't at that Policy and Resources Committee. And the world has moved on in the last 2 years. Just because we agreed something 2 years ago didn't mean it was perfect. That's why it needs to be reviewed. Any other points?
May I continue?
Carry on.
The issue actually that I want to say is symptomatic of why I agree that we should in fact go back and look at this again, is that I did not know that the commission that we had agreed, which was the ticketing commission, had simply flopped. Nobody knew that. And I'm absolutely with you, Chairman, that we should have been told about that didn't work, because that, to me, in my mind, was actually extremely important. And I know that we were particularly exercised by the fact that the mid-steeple could not sell tickets at one stage. I hope this has changed for DG1 activities. So members did actually care about that, and they thought that was an extremely important commission. So I am annoyed that we weren't told about that. But I think we should also remember that this was to be practitioner-driven and arts-led. We decided that. That's what we decided we wanted to happen. So, when they do arguably lead it, and we don't like the direction they're going in, we can't absolutely blame them. We've just got to keep asking the questions. I'm not going to disagree with you at all. I think we should haul this back and have another look at it. And certainly, the area committees should examine the plans that they agreed 2 years ago. I'm entirely with you on that.
Any other questions? Steve?
Thank you, Chair. I'm sort of quite, I could do with a bit more information on the sort of governance assurance on this paper. It seems quite lenient, I suppose, might be the word for it. And I've got a few questions just to do with the Regional Arts Fund, in that, given the model in Appendix 2, where it shows the sort of idealised structure of how funding, how the different structures are sort of made up and their relationship to each other, I was a wee bit confused as to how the Chamber of Arts was actually applying to the Regional Arts Fund when it was the body that sat above the Regional Arts Fund. So there's a few issues there which would maybe be helpful to find out a bit more information on, but I found, even reading the report, I was a wee bit more confused at the end of it than I was at the start of it. So maybe if it was structured in a different way, where we could maybe identify the costs associated with each of the components of the model that's now been sort of seemingly agreed, I'd have a bit more confidence in going forward with it. Because it's the creative sector is something that I like to support, but equally I think you need to know what it is you're supporting, and that there's a bit of governance attached to it that you can actually make it accountable. Thank you.
Yeah, Chairman. I think I understand where members are coming from. Can I remind you exactly what you set up here? Councillor Maitland is absolutely correct. You set up arts organisation to run the arts in Dumfries and Galloway. Whether you felt at that time that you weren't doing a very good job of it yourselves, I don't know. But the system was set up. It is working. It's bringing a lot of money into Dumfries and Galloway. I do understand members' angst that they maybe want to have a wee bit more understanding and a wee bit more say in exactly what's going forward. There are areas in there that I, as a director, read and went, oops, when did that one come out of the woodwork? I think the governance arrangements that have been put in place, we've got several different bodies utilising their own governance arrangements. For example, Creative Scotland has got robust governance arrangements. It don't part with money unless it knows exactly where the money is going and how it's going to be spent. The Dumfries and Galloway Council is the same, because, sorry, I'll defer to the member. Okay, the Dumfries and Galloway Council is the same. We have got robust arrangements. It's delegated to officers to deal with. The officers then deal within the delegation framework to make sure that any resource that's given out, we know exactly where it's being spent and what it's being spent on, and we do the monitoring arrangements. So there are governance arrangements in place. I do understand Councillor Thompson's angst that they're maybe a wee bit confused. I'm not sure where you want to take this, Chairman. This was meant to be a kind of end of term report card rather than a review document. If you're looking to review how we work with the arts in Dumfries and Galloway, I think, yeah, we can do something along those lines for you. But I would just like to get some direction from members, because there are different issues there. Governance arrangements relate to actual pound, shillings and pence and how you spend the money and how you account for the money. What you and Councillor Maitland seem to be talking about is something slightly different. I'm not being awkward, Chairman. I just need to get some clear guidance for my staff, so that they're going away and bringing something back to you which you find useful and meaningful in the end of the day.
I'll bring Stephen back in.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that, and I know it's from following on from what Councillor Maitland said as well about the origins of this particular beast. But in terms of the report card, I wouldn't necessarily have a problem with it. I'd obviously seek to find more information and scrutinise it, but my report cards never went back to the head teacher saying, can I have £150,000 please as well. So I think there's a wee element of the forward ask for next year's money, as it were, to sort of provide a seed fund. So I think that's where my angst comes in, is the fact that if it was a robust report and it was soundly governed, as it were, then there would be less sort of concern over that final recommendation. So I think that's really where my angst comes from.
Patsy and then Alistair.
Yeah, thank you. I absolutely agree there with Councillor Thompson. And it is at 3.32, which is what we're being asked for, which is nearly £150,000. And it is good that that will bring more money in, but it's not the only criteria that we judge success, is how much money comes into the area. It's what you do with it. And with this, I'm not entirely sure what is happening with it. We seem to have failed on 2 out of 3 of the first commissions, one of which was the mid-steeple, and that is disappointing. So the first thing we do is we then go and employ people. I thought it was all meant to be led by the practitioners themselves. I thought, I didn't think it was all about employing conveners here, there and everywhere for every area and an overall one. And so I think it is time for a review, if I'm being quite honest, because I'm not entirely sure it's going in the right direction, or the direction that we would be entirely happy with now. And it doesn't mean to say that we were wrong to set it up. I think that was the right thing to do at that time, but it also doesn't mean that we can't have another look at it and see what it's doing. I noticed the money for the conveners, for instance, it's up to, I think they're up to July. It's on page 86. It goes from January 2014 to September 2015 for the 4 Chamber of Arts Hub conveners, and the Chamber of Arts Hub convener, again, is from July 2015. So perhaps now is the time to look at it and see what they've been doing and to see what's been happening in our areas. I think that's absolutely quite right. So I don't know how you want to word that, but that would be where I would be suggesting we look personally.
Thanks for that, Patsy. Alistair.
Thanks very much, sir. I basically agree with what what yourself and your 2 colleagues have said. I mean, while Mr. Haswell is right, and it's helpful that he has sounded the cautionary note which he has, I've heard nothing thus far which would indicate that we're of a mind either to dismember or to dismantle these existing arrangements. That's not what, as far as I'm concerned, would appear to be on the table. But I certainly support what's being argued, what's being said. Let's have a review to make sure whether or not the criteria that we originally agreed are still relevant and valid today, or if not, whether we can look, as it were, at making these more relevant and valid and enhancing the benefit to the region as a consequence. And the regional economy, and there speaks the Philistine branch of the SNP.
I'll claim that over you, pal. Right, can I try and draw this together? Because obviously there is a feeling there that elected members need to be, whether it's more involved, but certainly more information, certainly pertaining to the governance side and knowing what's going on in their own area. Could I maybe suggest in the first instance that what Rebecca could do is try and organise what we had in Nisdale, and that's community meetings in the other 3 areas. And that can be done over the early part of next year. And if it's done the same vein as Nisdale, at least that informs members and the public of what's going on. Further to that, I think perhaps we need to take a look at how we do things as a council and the role this committee has, and also the role of the area committees. I mean, for myself, I really do think that in the early part of the year, the area convener should take something to area committees and allow the elected members to say, yeah, we think this is okay, or why are you bringing this particular? I mean, I know there was a bit of stushy up in one area where there's supposed to be some link between something that the arts people were doing and that area, as it turned out there wasn't. But it was a nice wee commission for somebody. But I'll not get into that. But you can find out for yourselves. So I still think there is a need there for local members to have their input and perhaps point out that maybe they know a wee bit more about the area than some of the people commissioning these things pretend to know. So I think if we maybe have a report back on how we handle this as a council, both at this level and at area committee level. But in the meantime, I think Rebecca could get things organised for Annandale and Eskdale, Stewartry and Wigtown to update the members there and the public of what's been going on so far. That wouldn't do any harm. Brian, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. I would welcome that opportunity, and I think it's essential that we review. But just seeking clarity, Councillor Thompson earlier made reference to the governance assurance. All those consulted are in agreement with the information contained in this report. It would have been helpful if we had seen who those consulted were in that regard, and I just wonder if that would present a problem.
No, we're quite happy to provide that information. Can I just be sure, Chairman, we're going to do some information exercises across the 3 other area committees, similar to the one that happened in this deal. You're looking for a report back on a review of how this actually operates and how it might operate slightly differently. Is that a fair comment? I'll defer to Councillor Maitland, sir.
No difficulty with what's being suggested at the moment, but I will say, please remember that you wanted to have an arm's length organisation in terms of allowing the arts people to decide what was appropriate and important. I think the link for us is at this stage how we decide whether the commissions that are decided upon are the right ones. That's the bit that we need to get right, and I think that's the bit that's missing, that nobody understands. Because I mean, you know, to find that the commission that we decided on the ticketing one just kind of disappeared without us knowing, I think is unacceptable. It's that bit of the link that is not being properly brought to us. And my understanding, I believe that, and it was early days at the time, but I think the Chamber of Arts at that stage was one of the monitoring organisations that should have been saying what was happening with that commission. And the link was that they did not tell us what had happened. And I think that's part of the problem. So that's what I think we really have to get sorted out. But I would caution members against kind of getting in too much into it, because it's still quite early days in terms of how the thing goes up and comes down. I think we've identified 1 or 2 problems, and let's get them sorted out, particularly with respect to budgets and commissions.
I'll be quite honest with you. I mean, a lot of these events are free, and therefore it is hard to gauge their effectiveness. It's okay if you're selling tickets, you can measure how many folk are going through the door. There's a lot of free stuff, and I can give you an example. I mean, there was a guy playing a guitar up the high street one Sunday. I can tell you the wee mad Albanian accordionist who plays for free down in the high street at a bigger audience than that guy had, and he was getting paid hundreds of pounds. So I think that we have got to measure how things happen. If folk are more interested in hearing a wee Albanian accordionist can hardly play the instrument rather than some highfalutin guitarist, then I'm merely making the point that art is in the eyes of the beholder, and sometimes the people with Dumfries were too beholden as to what they were being told was art or entertainment. I think that's one of the reasons why we need a wee bit of a review. Patsy?
Yes, just to follow on from Councillor Maitland, I mean, I think it is the commissions that are the things that have not maybe gone the way we thought they were going to. And whatever else, you know, it is, we are being asked to give £150,000 in straitened times. We are obliged and duty bound to make sure that that is being well spent and delivering what we want it to do. I don't want to get us all involved in the minutiae, but we do need to know that it's being well spent and we're getting value for money. And I don't, from this report, I'm not entirely sure it is.
Okay, I'm going to try and bring this to a conclusion. So I think we note, that's 2.1 we note, 2.2 we note, and 2.3, I think we can agree to go forward for next year, but I think we need a 2.4, and that is we get a report back to this committee on how we take things forward, and certainly in how we audit how things are happening. And I still think that it does no harm for the 3 area committees to have a presentation early next year. And that brings all the members, because only members here, or those who are in this deal, have got a flavour of what actually was happening. So do no harm for other 3 area committees to know what has been happening to date from, and it'll be a chance for elected members to meet the area coordinators. I'm quite sure that most elected members will not know who the area coordinator is for their area. He's getting paid a good whack of public money. So would members be happy to proceed that way? Alistair?
Totally supportive of what you're suggesting, sir. I would like some further information, though, in relation. If I understood you correctly, or if I heard you correctly, Chair, you're saying, in fact, that we would run with what we've got for next financial year. Agree with that, subject to the proviso that, you know, the important proviso, which is mentioned in the last part of paragraph 2.3, is properly monitored, so that we can, in fact, confirm the output, as Patsy has already said, that we're getting what we say we will get.
That's taken.
Yeah. I think it is important, though, that with regards to area committees, not just to get a presentation, but to kind of monitor it at that level, but also to have an input into that, into the plan ahead for the year. I think that's quite important, because we've had one council there, is involved in a project that thinks there could be an intervention from the person. So I think it's not only do we monitor it, but obviously, we should have some input into our area plan.
No disagree. That's something we can discuss at our next, formalise that at our next meeting. Members happy to go down that road? Thank you very much. Move on to item 8. Which is the progress report of integration of libraries, registration and customer services. And we've got the report there. Annie Johnson is with us today and can hopefully answer any questions members may have. Have you got anything to add to the report, Annie?
Well, Chairman, this is the report that members asked for. It shows how we're achieving the savings on integration. It also shows the outturn capital costs of better and fewer buildings across Dumfries and Galloway.
Any questions? Councillor Marshall, then Councillor Stitt.
Yeah, I think the one thing that we probably need to learn from this piece of work and also the community facilities review is actually the amount of work that actually it takes up to actually do that. I think we underestimated, or maybe not underestimated, just too up. Probably we forecast it was going to be a lot easier than this, but it's not actually working with officers on the ground. You can realise how much work is required in each proposal in the locations that they are. One thing I'd like I think, certainly from my point of view, in my ward, I would probably like a breakdown of the two that are in there, the East Riggs Library and the Annan Library, if there's a breakdown of the anticipated spend, if that can be sent to members. I don't know if other members would like it in their area. But also as well, I haven't had the meeting with regards to Annan Library, but certainly I have got real concerns about the interim proposals, and I think what we need to do is look at what's best for the long term rather than actually putting in an interim solution for that. As I said, I've not had the meeting with the officers, but I am concerned the proposals there that what is being proposed it would not work, and I think that all members have got concerns about that. But I'll probably meet up with the officers as well. But I really need to understand what that 50,000 is, the anticipated spend for Annan Library. But
I think that will come out, Leader Chairman, when we come to the actual meetings on the ground with the local members. I think I do take your point about putting interim arrangements in place. We've got two facets to this. We've got the staff and customer interface, and then we've got the building situation, and the two aren't always easy to dovetail. I think what we need to do is talk to local members in the Annan area as to how we're going to take it forward. We've got staff who are now saying we want to get into our new integrated jobs for reasons which I'll tell you offline. By the same token, we've got buildings that need work doing on them, and you're right, the Annan estimate is just that, it's an estimate. There's an awful lot of work to be done on that. But yeah, these are things that we'd like to develop with the local members. We've had some very successful meetings over the piece. We're struggling with Langham at the moment, as Councillor Driver has said, but we think we've got a solution there, CC, looking at Annie quietly. We'll come back to local members. I think we've had very successful meetings across Dumfries and Galloway with local members as to just exactly how they see the practicalities of taking the thing forward. I think that's important, we get that, as well as the input from the users.
At this early point that you will have a problem with the Annan one, so I think we need to actually get together and try and look at the longer term solution for that.
Thank you. Councillor Stitt, then I'll have Councillor Geddes,
Thanks,
Councillor
Chair.
Maitland,
Just like to say it's good to see that the renovation work is now starting to be customer services after a long wait, and it's going quite well, which is appreciated by the staff. What I find quite alarming is page 108. I know it's not in my ward, but you see the library figures for Castle Douglas and Dorai, what have plummeted, especially Castle Douglas is 70,000, in 4 years it's down to about 60,000 visits. Is there any special reason for that, Annie?
It's a national trend in libraries. People are moving more towards e-books, magazines, so we are seeing less coming in. I would say that those figures are pre-integration, and where we have integrated, we're seeing visitor numbers increase, and that's because we've got different people coming in.
Thank you. Councillor Geddes and Councillor Maitland, Councillor.
Thanks very much indeed, sir. Speaking from a mid-Galloway context, let me make it clear that as far as I'm concerned, the communication process has definitely been enhanced and it's now working. I wouldn't say that the message is always particularly palatable, but at least it's clear and unequivocal, Chair, and I would pay tribute to the members of staff in question for that. One issue does concern me though, sir. I mean, we're going forward on this particular front, in relation to CCS properties, for want of a better term. But there are other, again, from a mid-Galloway context, there are other buildings which are the responsibility of other parts of this organisation, which are not, it would appear to me, I'd be interested in particular in my colleagues' views, would not appear in fact to be being addressed in anything with anything like the same degree of rigour or anything like the same degree of professionalism. And that, I must confess, Chair, does cause me a significant amount of concern, particularly when I suspect that the same may well pertain across the other 12 wards in Dumfries and Galloway. So I think we've got to be alive, the council, not this committee, but the corporate council have got to be alive to that and to act accordingly, Chair. Thank you.
No, I'm obliged to Mr. Geddes for the comments he's made. I did promise him at the time that he would get full communication. He wouldn't always like it, and I respect him for coming back to me on that. I think what we are doing is, as we reduce the number of CCS assets in Dumfries and Galloway, it's enabling other services to look at the buildings that we're vacating. For example, and I hate going back to Stranraer, we've now moved a lot of people out of a building in Stranraer, which is going to enable other services to empty another building in Stranraer over the period of the next 3 months, and that building will then go on the market. So from a council point of view, it is reaping benefits, not as quickly as I certainly would like to see it.
It's just a factual question again on page 106. I'm curious as to what's being counted in the UIT. Everywhere else in Nithsdale is going down or staying the same, but UIT is taking a very considerable nip up. And I just wondered what we were doing there.
I think during the year 2013-14 there was a lot of events and activities that hadn't previously run in the UIT. Because there isn't an activities room or a separate room in there, we hadn't previously tried to hold these kind of events, but we started to hold them within the main part of the library, and it really made a difference.
Thank you. Councillor Maitland asked one of the questions. It's nice to see that the UIT's figures are going up. Superb staff in there, I may add.
See, Lochside is also up as well, which is encouraging. But my main point on this one, Tom, is on page 101 is the registration. The registration department by Clue Street, when it was through the back, was absolutely superb. People could get in and out. They had private rooms beside it. Now we've got it at the front of the building, and people with wheelchairs and those with prams are unable to go through those doors. The access to those doors are not suitable for wheelchairs. Now, this has been brought up before on more than one occasion. Just wondered if that could be looked at.
It's not something that I've been made aware of, but it's certainly something that we can look at. I would say, just as a bit of a benefit, I suppose, in Dumfries of integration, because the registration district we have is Galloway rather than places, we will be able to offer registration services or town. Now, obviously, that's not taken away from municipal chambers. A lovely particular ceremony taking place where it's real benefit out with the town centre for registration events in those places. It should take municipal chambers. I'll certainly
Thank you.
Yeah, Chair, a couple of questions and comments to make. Just on the figures, and indeed the library figures on page 105, reference to Stranraer coming from 12,300 down to 9,000 or 92, from 120,000, sorry, to 92,000 in the library. Now, the integration has changed the complex of the library in as much as it's now an integrated service, and I find that strange, you know, in terms of that we look at this and say visits to the library. I would have thought that we would have had an increase, given we moved the one-stop shop from Sun Street down to the library in North Strand Street. So maybe we could have some clarification in that in terms of, is it the library or is that the overall figure to the integrated centre, and indeed we're not getting a true reflection on library visits, notwithstanding that they seem to have dropped off throughout the whole of Scotland. Can I maybe then address the issue on page 101 in terms of capital works, where it refers to a minimal level? This means installation of a new counter in each of the three, in addition, where appropriate adjustments have been made. And I look then at page 111, and there's two references to Stranraer Library. One with a total of 340, almost 350,000, and again further down, 40,000 plus. Yet we have a new counter installed at Sun Street, still with a resemblance of one-stop shop, and what we had there was one adequate counter removed and a second one replaced. My understanding, having seen I don't know how many plans, was that was mezzanine floor to create more space and everything else, and what we ended up with was one counter coming up which was perfectly adequate and a second counter put in, and I question whether there was real value for money in the exercise. And I know Alex has referred to that we're about to empty one building. We've moved the registrar out, and what we were left with is a number of offices still remaining empty for I think at least a number of months. So perhaps we could have, you know, in terms of the figures to the library and the plan that was originally there in terms of the mezzanine floor, and whether we are indeed attaining value for money in the exercises we're going about.
In terms of the number of visits, that those are library figures, and the reason for the big drop in Stranraer was that during 2013-14 we were closed for, I think, 10 weeks for refurbishment. So that's why
Excuse me, Chair. Annie, can you come forward to the mic a
Sorry.
bit?
Normally I'm loud enough without that. It's as a result of the 10-week closure that we had for refurbishment works, and it is all, those are library figures. We didn't put any post-intervention figures.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Okay. Okay. I took out the new timetables for Castle Douglas Library the other night to a rural community council, and the question I was asked actually, and then you might be able to tell me, is what's happening with the mobile libraries? And the other question I've got here is talking about Castle Douglas Library and the reduction in numbers and the amount we're about to spend on it. I assume you're hoping the numbers are going to, or have spent as well, yes. No, anticipated spend is what you're, so I just wondered what you're doing in Castle Douglas.
In terms of mobile libraries, there's no change to the service at present, but that's certainly something that we'll have to have a look at. In terms of the figures for Castle Douglas, the anticipated spend there is probably a good bit less than we have noted. Originally, we were looking at making use of the flat upstairs because we needed office space as well as private interview facilities, because we have 2 area-based staff who are based in Castle Douglas. We have been working with colleagues in DG First, and we've found alternative office accommodation for those people, which means that we can fit the full integrated service within the existing space in Castle Douglas Library. So it's a creation of an interview room, a new counter, and we have to get new shelving. The shelving that's in there at the moment is quite old. It's a full refurbishment of Castle Douglas Library that we will get. I would also say that the heating system and electrics are in need of replacement, but Property and Architectural Services have put that on their rolling programme. It will not now come out of the budget.
They've got a very good and well-used art gallery there. Are you keeping that, or is that being... Yeah.
That will remain as it is.
Okay. Mark, you want to come back in?
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. There has been a considerable amount of money spent on Stranraer Library to date. That has not only been used simply because of integration. The library is 20-odd years old. It required a lot of refurbishment work. Computer systems have changed. There's been a lot of work done on it in addition, and I can give you a breakdown of the work. Turning to Sun Street, yes, there are plans to upgrade Sun Street considerably. That's in the Council's overall non-schools capital programme. I don't need to remind the members who are asking the specific question. The heating system there is now 30 years old minimum. The whole thing requires, and I understand that the mezzanine flooring and the additional office accommodation will go in as part of the larger project. What we did at the moment was to minimise as far as possible the amount of space being used for a reception desk, so that that reception will become the reception for a much bigger building. It's part of an ongoing programme of works. So I do take the point that it looks as if the one-stop shop is still there. It ain't, because we've now got full use of Stranraer Customer Service Centre. Sorry, can we move away from libraries, folks? We don't have them now, other than where they haven't been converted yet. The Customer Service Centre. There have been teething problems, and I'm the first to accept those, but we are working our way through them, and I pay tribute to not only the staff in the libraries, but the staff out with the libraries who've made sure that integration has worked and is working. So I do take the point. There are issues that still need to be addressed, but there's a fair amount of money, and I think it's just short of £1 million in the Council's non-schools capital programme for expenditure on buildings in Stranraer. We are endeavouring to empty Ailsa House at the moment. My understanding is that there are moves afoot to bring housing staff and environmental health staff from Ailsa House into Sun Street. There are issues with a laboratory which I'm looking into, and somebody will address for us, but that is work ongoing. It's part of a phased programme of work. Unfortunately, the capital programme doesn't allow us to do it all at once, plus the fact that we need to close buildings and things like that. And we had quite a bit of disruption in some of the buildings. As Annie says, the library required to close for 10 weeks and that cut down on the numbers of people using the library. Hopefully that'll improve considerably over the forthcoming 12 months.
Councillor Simon and Councillor Ferguson.
Thanks, Chair. Seeing a wee upward trend at Kellohome Library. Kirkconnell doesn't have a library. The library is actually in Kellohome. Just for a wee correction there. Makes a big difference to us, the two different villages. It's actually on the, oh, we're never near Sanker. It's actually on the buildings, Chair. About 5 years, nearly 5 years back now, we moved out the customer services in Kellohome and left the building empty and moved into the Mill Hill Centre, where we had welcome new surgery and social work in there. That building is still unsold. It was about 2 years before it was sold, and it's been 3 years through a legal wrangle. Now, just wondering if that was happening throughout the authority, do you think we should look at maybe get legal to look at some of these buildings before we put them up for sale? Because they could sit there, well, that's been 6 or 7 years, that building's going to be sitting empty. Are we sure that all these places that we're making vacant are going to be able to be saleable? Because I know we've got a big problem with ours.
I know that I've spoken to Councillor Simon about that. I'm not sure if it was that particular building or not. It was another building. But we'll look at that one offline for you, Councillor Simon, see what we can do about it. I thought you were going to join your colleague, Mr Dempster, and tell me that I wasn't doing the right job in Sanker about selling the building in Sanker as well.
Well, I was going to bring that up next, Alec, because they have a similar situation in Sanker, which I was going to...
Councillor Ferguson and Councillor...
Thanks, Chair. I'm actually looking at the... In some respects, Annie, I'm not as happy with the rises in some of the places because it's the use of the library. Stop going to the library because they're just a facility now, you know, they're a multi-purpose facility. The only ones we increase is how many of them have actually got suites of computers that people are logging on to use for DWP requirements. If that's the case, it's not a good news story, it's actually a bad news story, right? Because, well, it's obviously a good news story in the respect that they're using the council premises to do so in facilities, but it's obviously got great concern to everybody, I would suggest, that the rise, and I would think it's no coincidence when you look at some of the locations where there's been an increase in the last year. Is there any way we can actually get some sort of breakdown to find out just how many of the people going into these premises are actually into access computers alone?
Yes, we've got figures for, we can get figures for how many people are using the computers or the percentage of available time that the computers are used for. We know that nationally we are getting, across Scotland, libraries are getting a lot more people coming in either for job search and obviously moving forward for benefit applications. We know that that's happening. It's anecdotal, because we can't really ask customers when they come in what they're coming in for. We have been working with colleagues who run customer satisfaction measurement survey to see whether we can put a question in that survey that's optional that people might be able to fill in and just confirm whether that's what they are using the PC for.
Thanks very much, Annie.
Thanks very much, Chair. I had been very grateful for the improvement of communications that had taken place in recent times. However, I have to say this afternoon, that I'm extremely disappointed that as a local member of Castle Douglas, that I'm learning information of changes to what the elected members had with the agreement with officers, and that coming out as incidental information in the course of this committee. And I have to say it's a great disappointment to me.
Sorry, Councillor Collins, that there are no changes to what we discussed at the ward briefing. We'll continue with the plans as discussed in terms of what we run initially, but not stepping at all on the toes of a wider picture to develop the Market Hill site.
That appears to, mildly reassured. It appears to contradict, however, the earlier statement that the current floor space will be utilised and that the art gallery will remain the same. I'm intrigued. I'm happy to speak to officers offline.
I think we've had a good go at this one. Can we just accept the recommendation? That's just to note the progress, and obviously we'll get a further report on these matters at a later date. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 9. Report here in the Wigtownshire Community Sports Centre. Anything you wish to add to the report?
No, Chairman, this is an ongoing issue in Stranraer relating to the provision of a sports centre focused on bowling, particularly 10-pin bowling and green bowling. We've identified a couple of sites there, or in fact 3 sites. I think Stephen Jack's here if members have got specific questions on the sites or anything else about the actual project.
Members, any questions? Councillor Scobie? Councillor Maitland?
Yeah, Chair, I think this one has had a good airing. It's been at Area Committee, it's been at EEI, and I think it's been at Policy and Resources. I think the project and the organisation, the voluntary group, do need to see the project progress to its final conclusion. I think it's covered in 3.13 in terms of before the group would be eligible to receive any external funding, they would require having secured the land large enough to host a particular centre. And it's just disappointing that their preferred option to begin with was found not to be suitable because of pipes that are running across the ground, and that's in Agnew Park. However, other work has taken place, and they have identified, along with 2 sites that were already within the options, a further site, and that's contained on page 119. This is the one at still on the waterfront, just along from the Scottish Waters pumping station, between that and the Burns House. What would be good, Chair, and we can see it depicted on page 139, and the organisation are confident in that the building, the sports centre, might be able to be contained within the area that is owned by the council, where it may not bring with it the burden of the private land. However, that, I'm sure, can be confirmed working alongside the organisation. The land in question, as we see in 3.46, the site will not be suitable for development until after remediation has been completed. I would hope that this committee does finalise this today, and that becomes the preferred site, still keeping the other options open, and that we try and move work forward in terms of the remediation. And for some of us that can go back to Wigtown District Council days, indeed that was the preferred site for the swimming pool, but at that particular time the ground was considered to be contaminated. I don't think that's the same now, and even against that, the advice being given from planning was that it still might be able to be built on with the level of contamination. So in this respect, I would hope that this committee will endorse the support given by EEI, the area committee, and so forth, and that they do move as quickly as possible, offering as much support as they can to the group in drawing down external funding. But to be able to do that, then they do need 3.13 to identify a piece of ground so that they can move forward. And I would hope that this committee would, as I say, endorse that of other committees or the council and move forward on it.
Well, actually, this is my first go at this, so I am going to have a go at it. I'm curious to know whether the council has a duty to support a viable business. I'm being asked, I see in the recommendations, to agree that it would have a positive impact and it should be supported, but I haven't got any knowledge of a business case. I don't know. Just as the local, as knowledge as an elected member, the region couldn't support an indoor bowling facility in Dumfries, and the facility in Newton Stewart was not sold as a going concern. So I'm curious to know whether or not officers have got a level of information which I simply don't have. I don't know whether information has been gathered from Carlisle and Ayr, which I believe are the two places where we have proposals. So I'm being asked to agree that it will be a positive impact around the southwest, but without any information to support that suggestion. I don't know that. I've absolutely no idea. So I mean, that seems to me to be it's up to local members to decide where such a thing would be put. But I mean, do we have a duty of care to a social enterprise to look at a business case and see whether in fact such a thing would work before we even start running around proposing places for it? I just need a little bit of assistance, please.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, Councillor Maitland, the Wigtown Area Committee gave the Sports Centre £3,000 around six months ago to develop a business case, which they did. So that work has been completed. I've been working closely with them. They've been gathering evidence from similar type projects across Scotland. They do want to see it as a community-led project and mixed with volunteers and paid staff, but really for the benefit of the community and to attract visitors to the area. They need to do a bit more work as things move forward, as their plans develop, but they're signed up to doing that. But there is a business plan document as a starting point, which is certainly enough at the moment to take things to the stage that they want to get to. It's just to get to the next stage, they really do need this security of land in principle, and officers are happy to work with them and continue to do so. And third sector, Dumfries and Galloway, we're also providing support to them at the moment. There is a pending application to the Big Lottery Investing in Ideas Fund as well, which will hopefully be successful and enable them to take some more detailed work as the project progresses.
Yes, Maitland.
So I have the officer's assurance that we have a viable business case.
No, you have the officer's assurance that we're working with the group on a business case. We've done the preparatory work. The group are now in a position where they want to take something forward to the big lottery to get additional resourcing for assistance in the full preparation of the business of a full business case. What they require to be able to do that is to have a site identified which they can say, we know that we can, if our business case is viable and we can take it forward and we can get resources from the lottery, then we have got land that we can build it on. It seems to be a chicken and egg, but it's a chicken and egg that we've got to address as a local authority. The reports before members to allow you to do that. What we have done with the group, and Stephen will correct me if I'm wrong, is we've taken them through all of the elements that they require to get a full business case. And that includes, and I know personally they've had discussions with Ayr and Carlisle about the numbers of people that they need to get through the doors to make it a viable business. It is not going to be a business profit making, it is going to be a community business. But that's something that they will have to take forward as they develop their business case. The area committee gave them £3,000 to enable them to do the preliminary work. The land becomes apparently a sticking point. We're saying, let's agree in principle. There are 3 areas of ground there, 2 of which are completely in the council's ownership, 1 of which is partially in the council's ownership. Obviously, if they can build it on the land that's in the council's ownership, fine. I don't know the detail of that, but there is an issue that the land, which is partially owned by the council, still requires work done on it in relation to a former gasworks site which was located there.
Councillor Tuckfield.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I commend this group for getting this far, for being so tenacious. They've actually got it in front of us. However, I disagree with the site that Councillor Scobie has put forward. I think the group have got a mountain to climb, and we've put all sorts of conditions in at the back as well. But I do think today I would like to see a site identified for them, but I would much prefer the King George Park site.
I mean, I don't think it's for us to identify the site. I mean, you've got options there that leave that open for the group itself. I mean, all we're being asked to do today as a committee is to agree in principle 3 potential sites. And that's for the group to take away. We're not being asked for any money. We're not being asked to give them anything at the moment. It's to give them in principle support on 3 sites to help their business case. That's it. Councillor Geddes?
No, I was really looking for clarification, sir, because I'm not entirely clear as to why, you know, there's the sort of the caveat at 2.4 in the recommendations, which talks in fact about you know, the sort of subject to the proviso of the land from the adjoining private proprietor being available at the appropriate future time. I mean, obviously that will be required, but you know, my understanding, Chair, is that the Wigton Area Committee has never come to a decision as to which of the various potential sites in Stranraer would be their preferred option. All that they have done, if memory serves me correctly, Chair, is said, yes, these would be suitable for the purpose. Now, I take it on the back of what you've said, sir, that will still be the situation today. Exactly. That's the reassurance I'm looking for. And it will be up to the committee, as it were, to work up and formulate its plans and take matters forward. And then ultimately, if that site, if that is their aspiration and they're able to realise it, obviously we will require to sell our portion of that area of land to them on a peppercorn basis. That's essentially what we're being asked to agree today. Thank you, Chair.
The members have to accept the recommendations. I think fairly straightforward case. We're not being asked to do anything except agree in principle. So I'm quite happy to agree the recommendations. Thank you. Kobe?
Yeah, Chair, I'm not going to, try and divide on it, and we see them here. There is an issue in terms of that Councillor Geddes has identified, whether it's got the proviso of that subject, and I think that, the organisation has looked at it and they feel they can build without the burden of the private sector, but that's for them to come forward and confirm. I accept that point. The difficulty is that to allow, and I hear what you're saying in terms of what's the preferred site, and should this be an area committee, this is putting it back again, and the club are needing to move forward on a site rather than 3, because the lottery, as I understand
with all due respect, it is their proposal. Right? We've said we don't have any objections to you having any of these sites in principle. It's not for us to tell them what site. That's for them. Right? It's not our decision, it's theirs. We're saying we've got 3 sites here in Stranraer that are suitable in our ownership. We're prepared to let you have them in principle. If you want to make an application at Big Lottery Fund, you identify the site. Nothing to do with us.
Grateful for that, Chair. Grateful for that explanation.
That's not in the recommendations. That's not in the recommendations. Can we accept the recommendations?
Chair, just quickly, there's one wee bit I'm no, happy is not the right word. It's actually worrying me a wee bit here. Why have we got in the bit about subject to the sports agreeing to a suitable land purchase with the owner of the land in private ownership? Because that's out with our control. Why is it in the recommendations?
Basically, sir, what we're saying is there are a number of issues there, including possible contamination. There's planning permission. At the time we wrote the report, the information which Councillor Scobie has given me that the site could be, the council's site on that area was sufficient for their purposes. We had assumed that they required the additional land. Our advice was they required 1.5 acres of land. We don't own 1.5 acres of land. We own less than that, but there's adjoining land in private ownership. What we're saying is we will allow them to have the council's land, but they may require to buy land from a private owner. We cannot buy the land from the private owner. It's not within our control. It's just the way of the recommendation.
Yeah, maybe I think maybe the recommendation being over prescriptive. Can we make it simple and say we are agreeing that if they want to make an applicant big lottery, they can have a pick from any of our 3 areas of land and get on with it, and forget about all this stuff at the bottom of that recommendation 2.4. Is that easier for members?
Well, Chair, some of us might have said it was a prudent caveat, but never mind, I'm not going to argue about it.
Right, can we accept 212223 and 24 as amended? Thank you. Move on to item 10. Which is a severe weather response level. And just what's happening outside, it's getting more severe by the minute. Fairly comprehensive report here. Members get any questions on the report? Councillor Geddes?
Well, I don't really have any particular issues, Chair, you know, with what's being suggested in the report, but I have to say nonetheless that, you know, I have a feeling of unease about it, because I accept entirely, sir, that, you know, we probably never, well, we never were the universal social worker, and, you know, as things get harder and more difficult, you know, we're going to have less and less of such a role. But the blunt fact of the matter is that our people, the people we're charged with serving and representing, will inevitably look to us, as it were, as being the backstop, so that when all else fails, when, you know, other public sector authorities, for instance, are in their assessment failing to step up to the plate, who will they turn to? As always, they'll turn to the council. I had occasion no later than a few days ago to quietly say to a constituent who was going on about a housing matter, it's no council house. It's no council house any longer. It's not been a council house for years. But that's not the point, Chair. In people's psyche, and I take it in a way as a commendation of the council's impact and community life in Dumfries and Galloway, and ingrained in people's psyche is the issue that it's the council, and when all else fails, who do they look to? Who do they turn to? The council. And, you know, the thrust of the report, maybe that's too strong a word, Chair, but the clear steer we're getting in the report seems to me to be, well, it's almost as though, you know, we're sort of disengaging, and, you know, other people will have to step up to the plate and discharge their functions and their roles. Now, I wouldn't argue against that, because it's extremely difficult to do so. But I feel that when push comes to shove, and we are in that type of situation, the path will be beaten to the door of the council, and I don't think we should forget that and overlook the implications that and the difficulties that it may cause at that time.
Yeah, I think one of the problem we do face as a council is that we don't necessarily have a policy on this, and everything is a bit piecemeal, and it could depend on who the member is or who the senior officer is involved. I think what this report actually does, it gives us, and it does state in 3.5, it's a minimum level of service. So it is an assurance to communities that we will give them a minimum level of service at a certain point. It also recognised the fact that we're probably the leaders in Scotland in terms of developing community resilience. And the whole point about community resilience is that communities and individuals, particularly in rural areas, should potentially look to be able to protect themselves or to look after themselves and their families for the first 24 or 48 hours. And I don't think that's unreasonable, given that in recent snow events, there have been times when council, health board, fire brigade even have not been able to get to certain areas, given the severe weather. So rather than sort of looking at this as a way of stepping back, I would say we're given an assurance here that the council are on the job, and that we're actually looking at it on an organised basis, and that we're not in any way at any point saying we won't do this. We're saying that this is what we will guarantee to do. And I think at the same time, we're also able to, in the first 24 hours, for example, we're able to focus on those that are most vulnerable. And I think that's one of the biggest issues we've got when we have a big, widespread event, and our resources, we have finite resources. I think it's important that we do actually have the resource to focus on those that are most vulnerable in our community.
I'm grateful to you, Chair, as always. Well, I think that's very helpful, sir, and it's very reassuring. And let me repeat, Chair, I'm not hostile to what's being suggested, but I think it's absolutely imperative. We've been privileged in this, to listen to David's response, in this chamber today. But I think it's absolutely imperative, Chair, that we devise proper communications to get that message out clearly and unequivocally to our communities and to our people. And on that basis, sir, as I say, I'm not hostile to it, just apprehensive. On that basis, I'll go with it. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Just a couple of things, Chair. It says in page 149 at the top, general conditions, that the council sandbag policy should be adhered to during periods of flooding. Is there that in writing anywhere? Or could we maybe have a copy of that? Because I don't know what the policy is. I know that we had occasion last year with the worst flood in living memory, and we were told to travel to Dumfries ourselves, to get sandbags while our houses were getting flooded. So we would like to be prepared the next time, and we are looking at meetings and stuff and putting resilience together, and DGHP for once have been really good. They're providing floodgates for their tenants, but I have got an area where we could have a storage sandbags locally and sand, but could maybe get a chance to reiterate what the sandbag policy is, who's entitled to sandbags, etc. My other thing is on the Met Office warnings. On the night of that flood, the Met Office warning was just a normal amber alert that we've had over the years. And it's a wee bit like cry wolf, because the next day we were all flooded to death, and it was just a normal alert that we would usually get. So it wasn't saying this is going to be 10 times worse than we've had before, but it's just the same level of alert. So there's a wee bit of sort of nervousness about looking at these alerts, because they're not actually true. And I know there was a lot of sort of stories about what happened that night, that the water rose so quick. But as I say, there was no warning of how serious that was going to be, and we finished up with about 40 houses flooded. And we're still getting the repercussions of that, yeah. So if you could just maybe explain the sandbag policy for me, please.
Yes, Councillor Simon, the sandbag policy is available on the Council's website. It's led by DG First. Essentially, it's saying that when it comes to times of flooding, that the resources we have, it's probably the wrong time for us to be looking for sandbags. We should be considering sandbags in advance when we know there's a flooding risk. I appreciate that that's a difficulty. One of the things we're trying to do in community resilience is encourage communities to have their own store, whatever, which would include mini gritters, etc. And one thing that's been looked at in some areas of high flood risk is the potential of having a store with sand and bags separately. There are also, under the council's subsidised scheme, you can also purchase these flat pack sacks that expand when they're put in water. I know that's not a perfect solution, but I think it's recognised, the sandbag policy recognises that when there's widespread flooding, and I accept on the day that you had the flooding, well, there was flooding in Carsby and other places, but it wasn't particularly widespread. But essentially, we have a finite resource, and probably not the resource to be able to run to communities. There is a hierarchy that they have in the sandbag policy, which is agreed by council. Initially, we look at protecting roads and infrastructure, and then look at protecting vulnerable people. Then it's communities, and then right down to individual houses. But that's on the basis of what resources available. So I would suggest that the best way for communities to ensure is to actually to take advantage of the council scheme and either buy sandbags or to get some sand and sandbags delivered to a store, which you could do through the community resilience team.
I would like the opportunity to do that. I went to DG First, they said I wasn't entitled to sandbags because they're for the roads. But we need sandbags to put in the roads to stop the water going down the houses. So the communities have got to buy these, have they? Do we buy them for DG First, or do we go to supermarket to buy them with.
You can actually get the flood tax. Sorry, they're through planning environment, flood risk management team. They run a scheme which is a subsidised scheme, which basically the council will pay 50% of things like floodgates, these sort of bags. But if I'll ask if you like, I asked Stephen Wiley, who's a community resilience officer, to contact you with maybe a view to getting some sort of resource in Kirkconnell and Kelholm itself.
Just go back to it, we're planning on getting Stephen up. It's just been, everybody's been very busy, man, to get him up. But, I mean, I have arranged a building for a store, and we could do getting these up. And a lot of people are getting very nervous because it's nearly a year for that happened. We've got heavy rains now, plus we've got a lot of snow in the hills, and people that were caught out last year are a bit nervous, and they don't have these things in place. A lot of them for last year can't get their properties insured, or it's too expensive to insure them because they don't have the stuff in place. So I appreciate that, and I'll maybe be able to arrange some with Stephen. As I say, we do want a stock that the community can use, because we've never had that. And it was a nightmare last year when people were phoning the council and they were saying, you can get sandbags, but you'll need to come to Dumfries and get it. Thanks for that.
Thanks very much. If no further questions, we move to the recommendations. Members happy to accept recommendations 2-1. Okay. And final item is the response to the Scottish Government Consultation paper, electronic cigarettes and strengthening tobacco control in Scotland. And we've got Sandra Hartness with us. Fairly short report, but we were required to put a response into the Scottish Government early next year. Have members got any questions for Sandra on this particular report?
Some of us that haven't seen these things, we could maybe get a demonstration for Alec out we're actually talking.
You obviously weren't paying attention because you had a fly puff about an hour ago. I've got eyes in the back of my head, you thought I hadn't noticed. Members get any questions? Are we happy with the response? Okay. Thanks very much, Sandra. Okay, I have no further business. Thank you all very much.